Pavlopetri, the world's oldest sunken town. A soothing exploration of ancient streets and Bronze Age homes, it is a curious thing, and one might call it a gentle miracle, that a town can learn a new language simply by lying still. The sea teaches vowels and softens consonants, and the place begins to speak in a quieter grammar. We begin, very slowly, with the water as a cooled sheet of glass, pale turquoise thinning towards soft green where sunlight folds and breaks, and we let our attention be taken like a small, polite guest. Inhale as the ribbon of light draws back, exhale as it returns. The shallow shelf off southern Laconia cradles rather than swallows. Stone roofs and paved lanes remain legible beneath a delicate film of sand, and particles drift like the slow falling of punctuation. Tiny bubbles rise and pop as if the world were answering us in commas. Distant gulls are elongated vowels that hover above the surface and sound like questions finished kindly. We permit the body to follow, shoulders softening, jaw loosening, hands settling as if on a lap. Let the chest widen and then ease. Look with patient eyes, and you will see suggestion rather than detail. The grid of streets the tide has favored, a flattened courtyard where water pools in a patient mirror, the straight line of a lane that once kept sandals in an orderly passage. A lintel shows its carved edge through silt like a slow signature. A stair persists, step after softened step, remembering feet. In imagination, we find a small, bright bead half buried against a pebble, a private punctuation, a tiny proof of ordinary life beneath grander questions. Sound here is domestic rather than heroic. The scrape of a crate becomes a low vowel, the knock of a small pebble is a quiet count, and the hush of cloth folded in a courtyard is a long, satisfied consonant. One might suppose grandeur would be the song of an ancient place, yet Pavlopetri's grace lives in hearth rhythm and spun thread. Dish, spindle, loom weight, each ordinary act translated by water into a gentle music. Match the inhale to a rising suggestion and the exhale to the settling of sand. We practice a scholar's modest method, small attentions, patient catalogs. Do not hurry to explanation. Instead, make a slow list of tactile things. The faint scent of dried herb preserved like a pocket in stone, the oily residue that remembers amphory, the thumb polish on a peg imagined under silt. Each detail is an offering the city extends to us for careful reception. We lower judgment and raise attention. We become listeners to a place that keeps its stories in texture and trace. Allow a brief scholar aside, murmured as if from a folded page. Sonar sketches architecture like a distant hand, cores read time as layered diaries, and pollen speaks in discrete registers. These instruments translate differently. All are ways to listen rather than to claim authority. The reader will perhaps imagine maps and plotted points, but for now we prefer the intimacy of imagined touch, gloved fingertips along a softened edge, and will defer technicalities until our legs have learned to be still. From the west, a gull thread carries news that needs no urgency. Light falls diagonally, and the lane becomes a silver seam. We drift along that seam and notice how the sea has embroidered the town into new textiles. Thresholds softened by peat, tiles that remember the press of many feet, cisterns kept like modest memory holders. Feel, now, the subtle buoyancy under the ribs and the coolness at the nape of the neck where water rests like a shawl. These are body returns that anchor us in the present. We will not hurry. This listening is a practice of friendship with place. We learn its modest grammars and are given permission to set down our quickness. In the hush, gather a short interior phrase to tether attention. And let that whisper be a small, warm anchor against the mind's busy currents. There is the promise of our calm mapping, lane by lane, threshold by threshold. We will follow a ribbon of light to an inner chamber that wishes only to be noticed. We will listen for the quotidian. Feel the chest hollow, and then refill on a slow rhythm. Let the motifs settle: grid, courtyard, bead, stair, and permit the water to teach our lungs its patient grammar. Scholarly framing and gentle context, we situate ourselves, not with a map spread like accusation, but with a folded page and an attentive hand. One might suppose that placing a town in time requires certainty, yet often the gentlest histories are those that speak in suggestion and margin notes. Breathe with the slow cadence of our thought. Inhale as we recall a coastline. Exhale as we let conjecture settle. Imagine the Bronze Age coast here, a shallow shelf punctuated by sandstone outcrops, reed fringes where small boats drew close, and a community arranged in careful geometry, streets that meet at modest courtyards, houses opening onto lanes, cisterns tucked like private wells. The harbor is mild in our imagining, boats of small draft, leashed to simple rings, amphories stacked like patient sentinels. What did trade sound like on such mornings? A rope's rasp, a respectful grunt as a crate is eased, a soft settling of goods into place. Let that image breathe with us. We walk an avenue of oaks in this picture, trunks spaced like elder pillars and bark mapped with lichen-embroidered patterns. Children learned the avenue's rhythm, and their feet kept time to the trees. Did they race? Did they play hide and small games of counting? The oak avenue teaches the body a slow gait. One might, in imagination, step to its cadence and find our own walking becoming softer. Pause and inhale as the avenue's shade cools the chest. Consider the hearth, a low ring of stones in a courtyard where bread was flattened and the day's small conversations happened. Hearth smoke traveled, gently, into the air and left a faint chemical memory for Pete to keep. The smell of warmed grain and resin is almost a private note across time. In the hush of the hearth we hear domestic economy, a pot's subtle cough, a child's quick tally of nuts, a woman smoothing cloth in an arc that answers the motion of a loom. Such sounds are the most persistent traces of ordinary life. Let your shoulders loosen as you imagine that warmth. Out on the tidal plain, impressions read like a ledger. Ox hooves make deeper ovals, child feet leave lighter crescents, and the flat of a basket pressed into mud will be read as a small entry in a community's daily accounting. The plain records movement in a patient script, tides alternate revealing and covering, a slow staccato of visibility and concealment. We allow a fingertip, in imagination, to trace such impressions and feel the cool give of mud, a body return that brings us closer to texture and to patience. Breathe with that slow back and forth. There were crafts and economies threaded through these spaces. A potter's wheel in a shaded corner, a cooper testing a hoop, a dyer lifting cloth to the light to judge hue. Each craft emits a set of small, characteristic sounds and rhythms. A wheel hum that might be mistaken for an exhale, a mallet's rounded reply, the cloth's soft rustle when light passes through it. These noises are repeated over seasons until they become habit, and, in their repetition, they create cultural memory. It is a curious fact that repetition is a form of preservation. Objects shaped by many hands become harder to lose to chance. Let that thought sit lightly in the chest. And what of connections beyond the bay? Trade with Crete and neighboring coasts embroidered Pavlopetri's life with foreign shapes, different clays, new dyes, faintly varied pot forms. These contacts were slow conversations, amphory travel like letters, returning goods and ideas in measured passage. How should we imagine those exchanges? Gently, vessels arrive, are examined, sometimes kept as curiosities and sometimes employed with ordinary pragmatism. In that mingling of forms the town learns to be both itself and hospitable to difference. As we listen with our scholar's ear, we also note instruments of modern listening. Sonar translates shadow into suggestion, cores render time as a vertical page, and pollen speaks in suspended syllables about shifting flora. These are modest tools, aids to patience rather than proclamations of certainty. We accept their testimony while keeping a soft humility about what remains unknowable. The past will often speak in suggestion and leave its loudness for other kinds of stories. Breathe slowly here and gather the small facts into a calm mosaic. Pause with a moment of sustained wonder. What does it mean that streets can remember gentle footsteps? Does memory require a mind? Or will repeated habit press itself into stone and grain until the material replies in echoes? We ask not for resolution, but for intimacy. The question itself is a small ritual that slows thought and invites feeling. Inhale with that little query. Exhale and let the wonder dissolve into texture. We will carry this mosaic forward. The harbor's rope rasp, the oak's measured pillar, the hearth's private smoke, the plain's ledger of feet. Motifs to return to, each reframed as we move deeper. Breathe with the map we make together, and let the scholar's curiosity be a quiet companion rather than a sharp lantern. Pavlopetri, primary mystery unfolding. The town's soft question, we pause at a question that is not theatrical but domestic. How does a town of many hands become a place of hush, a mapped silence that remembers people more than events? Breathe with the curiosity of that pause. Let the ribs open and then fold around the question. Under silt and sand there is geometry that reads like a list of lives. House foundations aligned to common ways, cistern rims like small collars, tile fragments arranged into patterns that once pleased a maker's eye. Touch in imagination the grit of silt beneath a gloved fingertip. It will feel cool and slightly abrasive, and the edge of a stone will be softened as if by many small palms. The courtyard remembers not headlines, but footfalls, soft, repeated, ordinary. The courtyard remembers. We may propose 3 gentle voices that attempt to speak the end of this town. First, there is patient return, a slow embrace of salt, a gradual rise of saline indices in wells, reeds edging inland, floors raised and then left, life adapting in incremental notes until the balance shifts and the sea takes more than it gives. The acoustic of such a change is low and long, a sustained groan rather than a drum roll, and it feels, in imagination, like a series of small corrections made by people trying to persist. Second, consider sudden breach, a storm that finds a throat, a river that finds a new mouth, an inlet that writes itself through streets in a single, troubled hour. The signature here in the material world is abrupt lenses of sand, artifacts lying in confused assemblages, objects toppled as if mid-task. The sound of this hypothesis is a single percussion followed by a long hush. We do not relish catastrophe as a story, but we must allow for the bluntness of such events in geological history. Third, and perhaps most complicated, there is cumulative human undermining. Peat cut for hearths, dikes deferred, marginal lands pushed into more intensive use to feed more mouths. Many domestic choices affecting large thresholds over long seasons. Its sounds are domestic, the scrape of spade, the cart's slow turn, conversation at a kitchen table about where fuel will be found next winter. Ethically, this voice diffuses agency widely. Responsibility becomes shared rather than singular. It is a curious fact that many small acts can, together and slowly, alter a coast as surely as a single storm can. We do not insist on choosing one theory over another. Indeed, the evidence often sings like a choir, allowing overlapping harmonics. Sediment cores may hold sand lenses and pollen shifts in the same vertical passage. Sonar may sketch architecture that later cores show to be interrupted by a sharp deposit. How then do we hold certainty? We hold it briefly and then let it go. The question is less a demand than a method for deepening attention. Breathe and let plurality be a form of humility. Amid these broad possibilities, the town insists on the human-sized particulars. Picture an inner room whose doorway still reads like a lowered brow. Stoop and the world narrows into a private script. In such a chamber, Pete may have preserved a small object, a bead with a thumb polish, a carved peg, a little smooth toy. And that tiny thing performs a moral economy that big theories cannot touch. It is an intimate hinge. The bead does not tell us whether water rose slowly or swiftly, but it tells us that hands were here and that someone once chose, with a small private authority, to keep this thing near. Imagine the bead's surface, once bright pigment now in hairline cracks, a varnish eaten by salt and then kind to grain. The conservator will later cup it in gloved hands and find warmth in mineral memory. That warmth is not physical heat so much as the sensation of connection. We, who hear this, translate that connection into quiet custodial feelings, a small, domestic tenderness. Feel, for a moment, the cool clay beneath our toes as if we were at the courtyard's edge. Let that bodily image steady breath and attention. There are absences that echo as loudly as presences. A missing shoe beside a threshold, a net unrepaired, a bowl found turned and empty. These gaps become narratives in the mind. They are prompts to imagine the small, unrecorded departures of a household. The archive sometimes speaks by omission, and in those omissions we are invited to be compassionate readers of what is not said. What do modern listeners bring to this quiet question? We bring instruments that translate different registers: sonar for outline, cores for time, radiocarbon for probabilistic windows, and patient ethnographic imagination for filling out domestic textures. Together they compose a modest toolkit for listening. We use it not to conquer the past, but to sit with its textures, to let ambiguity loosen our need for tidy endings. Breathe with that acceptance and allow the mind to unclench. Before we move on, let us ground the body with a small instruction. Place a hand over the sternum and feel the slow lift and fall. Each inhale is an attentive step, each exhale a soft settling. The mystery remains. We will carry it forward like a warm pebble in the palm, returning to it later with kinder questions and quieter steps. Streets and courtyards. Mapping daily Bronze Age life, we walk now, slowly and without hurry, into the braided lanes that once organized household rhythm and neighborly exchange, and the day composes itself from small repeated gestures that, when placed end to end, become a city. Feel the soles of your feet as if they rest upon warm, packed stone. Allow the shoulders to loosen and the jaw to unclench. The lane is a gentle tutor. Sweep, count, lay, wait. Each movement a small grammar that teaches bodies how to belong. In the houses that face the street, front rooms open like modest theaters. A low bench, a clay basin, a nook where a loom weight might sit. We imagine a potter shaping a jar and setting it to dry in the courtyard's bright shallow, the wheel breathing out a soft, even hum that matches a measured exhale. A child sits on a doorstep and rolls a pebble between small fingers. The pebble's tiny clack is a metronome within the larger hush. One might suppose that such images are trivial, and yet they are the lattice of ordinary continuity that binds one household to the next. Let that simple rhythm settle. There is the repeated choreography of threshold care. A foot sweeps crumbs toward a single neat pile. A woman presses a hand to a lintel and smooths an edge. A man lifts a lid and tests the stew with a small spoon. These ordinary acts leave ordinary marks. A thumb polish on a peg, a shallow groove where a basket was dragged, the faint imprint of a child's toe that the tide has not yet erased. Touch these traces in imagination and feel the cool give of compacted sand beneath a fingertip. Let that tactile knowledge bring the breath into a longer curve. Courtyards are modest worlds, cistern rims like small collars, a scattering of loom weights like punctuation, a basin where water is ritually kept for washing and for small offerings. The courtyard holds public and private practice in the same small place. A pot is fired at one side, while at the other a woman sings a low counting song as she kneads dough. These merged sounds form a soft polyphony that the sea has translated into suggestion, And when we listen, we find that the town's dignity is not in a single shining thing, but in a chorus of useful motions. Breathe with that chorus and let the chest soften. Consider specifically the lane that leads to a slightly sunken courtyard where the bead was once lost and later kept. The paving stones there bear a different polish because many feet pause to adjust a child or to tie a knot. In that lane, we imagine the passage of seasons. Mortar darkening in winter rains, grain husks scattered at harvest, reed smoke in autumn settling into the crevices. Each season leaves its own soft residue. Each residue is a line in a slow ledger the earth keeps for those who notice. We step lightly and feel, for a moment, how time gathers in quiet accretions. Markets here are small and conversational rather than clamorous. A trader lays out a line of pottery with a careful hand. The pot's little ring when tapped is a sound that pleases a buyer and marks completion. Cloth flutters and is tested by touch. A dyer will lift a corner into light, and the hue's correctness is judged with a small, contented noise. Bargaining is gentle. Offers rise and fall like little tides and are often ended with a low laugh rather than a shout. The trade rituals train patience as much as they move goods. We learn by listening how the town keeps its balance. In workshop corners, the sounds are intimate. A mallet's rounded tap, the lathe's low croon, the tinny click when an object attains just the right fit. A smith's hand is a slow pedagogy, teaching metal to accept shape without hurry. We feel how these rhythms would teach a child to pace breath with labor. Inhale as a mallet lifts, exhale as it falls, and let the body learn a proportion that is not rushed. These are practices that shape not only things but people. There are small communal thresholds that organize time. A bell-like tone struck at midday to mark pause. A rope pulled by a single hand to bring a small boat closer. The communal clearing of a landing after a storm. These shared acts are less about proclamation than about mutual recognition. Everyone knows the place of the kettle, the hour of the afternoon break. The city's calendar is domestic and thus profoundly social. Its rituals are made of low, bewitching repetition. We will touch now on material clues. The layers of compacted refuse that tell us which crops were favored, the scatter of nails and loom fragments that mark areas of repair, the frequent presence of imported shards that whisper of distant exchange. Archaeology reads these as patterns of activity. We read them as traces of habitual care. In both readings, there is a holiness to repetition, something made durable by being done many times and quietly. Let the shoulders drop once more and bring attention to the palms. Imagine them softening as if touching a lentil's cool edge. The motifs we carry, lane, courtyard, bead, stair, are alive here, and they ask only for gentle recognition. Match your breath to the hum of ordinary work. Inhale with the opening of a door, exhale as it settles. Inhale as a wheel turns, exhale as clay answers. The city's ordinary music is a steady hand on our chest. Harbor, boats, and trade. The town is a gentle port. The harbor arrives for us like a small, recurring breath, a place where land and sea agree, and where the town learns to make commerce into choreography rather than spectacle. Breathe with the harbor. Inhale as a boat draws near. Exhale as it settles against the stone. Feel the mild give beneath the ankles as if you stood on a causeway at low tide. Let the shoulders loosen and the jaw rest. In this imagined morning, the ropes are the quiet language of docking. They rasp with a soft, habitual sound as hands ease them around iron rings, and the knot that is tied again and again becomes a small promise kept between sailor and shore. A porter lifts an amphora with a measured grunt, one hand at the neck, the other steadying the base, and the jar answers with a low, satisfying thud as it finds its place. These are not dramatic gestures, but careful negotiations with weight and balance. Their sounds fold into the harbor's steady phrase. Breathe with that phrase and let it slow the pulse. Small boats of shallow draft tuck into the bay like birds settling on a pond. Planks oiled and smelling faintly of pine, the slosh of water against hull a repeated, benign percussion. We imagine a line of amphories stacked like quiet sentries, their clay skins wearing different glazes that speak of other shores. Pale Cretan slips, darker mainland varnish. Each vessel a small envoy of distant practice. How soft the exchange when goods pass not as spectacle but as ordinary trust. Salt for oil, wool for grain, a simple jar for an evening's bread. Let that quiet trade breathe with us. There is a gentle choreography to loading. A rope looped just so, crates slid with a low sigh, hands counting in soft numbers to check weight and measure. Counting here is not accounting only, but an incantation of attention. It teaches bodies to move in unison and steadies conversation. Listen as numbers fall in low tones. 1, 2, 3, and imagine your breath falling with them. Inhaling on the pause, exhaling as the next item settles into place. Let that counting become a small metronome for the mind and for the day. Trade is an exchange of gestures and habits as much as goods. A trader lifts a corner of cloth to the light and judges dye with a quiet hum. A fisher unloads a basket, and the scale's slight metallic note pleases both buyer and seller. We picture an elder recognizing a motif on pottery and naming its maker with the soft authority of experience. That recognition is a small music, shared attention that rewrites anonymity as relation. These intonations of knowing are as important as the amphorae themselves. The harbor teaches seasonality. In harvest months, the quay swells with the slow cadence of crates. In lean months, fewer hands walk the stones, and the quay itself inhales less often. Tide and season ordain work and rest. People schedule lives by this slow calendar. Notice how coiled ropes, patched nets, and stacked amphorae thicken into a communal memory. Each repetition a braid of practical knowledge carried forward. Material traces of trade patiently register their passage. An oil stain in a crevice tells of repeated pouring. A scoured patch of paving marks where a rope rubbed for a generation. Copper filings glint like tiny records of repair. Archaeology reads such marks as indices of function. We, who are softer listeners, hear them as small stories. Someone leaning for a short, habitual rest, a child dropping a pendant and another returning it. The private kindnesses that keep commerce humane. Place your hand, for a moment, over the heart and feel that gentle consonance. There is quiet administration that keeps a port kindly. The person who notes which boat took which cargo. The neighbor who offers tea to a weary crew. The small signals that prevent confusion. Governance here is modest, patterned rules and customary courtesy, and it functions like a soft net that keeps exchange humane. It is a curious fact that civility often shows up in mundane registry rather than proclamations. We learn more from lists and ledgers than from banners. Across the bay arrive faint echoes of distant shores. Amphorae hint at travel to Crete. Spindle whirls suggest cloth exchange from other coasts. A nail of unfamiliar alloy speaks of an itinerant smith's hand. These objects are the harbor's postcards, not loud, but intimate, extending the town's life outward in measured conversation. Imagine receiving such a parcel. Its handwriting is familiar, and the distance feels kinder for being readable. As we leave the quay for lanes and courtyards, carry with you the harbor's steadiness, the counting, the knot, the hum of goods being made serviceable. Match your breath to that rhythm. Inhale as a crate is lifted, exhale as it settles, and let the harbor's small music remain in the chest. The town's trade is not spectacle but a lullaby of usefulness. Having heard it, we move on, steadied by ordinary exchange. Workshops, craft, and the small economy, we move into a shaded quarter where making is the day's slow grammar and where hands teach materials to keep their promises. Breathe with the wheel's quiet orbit. Inhale as a clay body receives pressure. Exhale as form steadies. Feel your palms. Imagine the faint grit that gathers at a craftsman's fingernails. Let shoulders lower with the rhythm of repeated correction. The potter's wheel turns with a hush that could be mistaken for breath. The potter's fingers, wet and patient, coax clay into a vessel, and the wheel answers with a soft, even hum. Each completed pot gives a small, contented click when it is set to dry, and that click accumulates into a subtle anthem of usefulness. We imagine the clay's coolness against the palm and the smell of warmed earth as if the courtyard itself were exhaling. One might suppose pottery is merely practical, yet here it is a form of devotion, shaping needs into things that can be passed along. Nearby, an anvil receives the smith's measured insistence. A mallet lifts, a strike rings, and leather pads soften the reply. The taps are not hurried. They are answers in a long conversation between heat and metal. The smith shapes nails, clasps, and small fittings that will hold doors and chests together for decades. Each small fitting is an act of future keeping. Notice how the beat lowers the pulse. Inhale as the hammer rises, exhale as it falls, and the metal yields. These are exercises in restraint and in care. Textile work has its own slow music. A loom yields through the repetition of thread over thread, and the shuttle's passing becomes a soft, repeating heartbeat. Loom weights sit like small companions, their grooves marked by fingers that once counted weft and warp. The dyer lifts a bolt of cloth to the light and judges hue with a private hum. The dye's scent, mild tannin and herb, sits like a memory folded in fabric. Craftspeople teach the next generation not through speech alone, but by repeating motions until patterns live in the body. Woodworkers and coopers work with low croons from their lathes and the conciliatory groan of bent staves. A cooper tests a hoop by hand, listening to the wood's tone as if it spoke the barrel's future. These timbers are subtle and require patient listening. They are skills that a child learns by standing near and matching breath to tool. Imagine a small hand guided for the first time, the kindness of a teacher's thumb steadying a wrist. This is apprenticeship as tenderness. Every workshop keeps its tidy rituals. Tools are wiped on cloth and set in predictable arrangements. Scrap is swept into neat piles. Fired pots are turned to catch the morning light. These routines are themselves measures of conservation. Repetition reduces randomness and increases the chance of an object surviving to be noticed again. It is a curious fact that everyday tidiness can act as a form of long-term preservation. There are quiet economies around repair. A broken rim becomes a lesson. Shards are matched, edges rubbed, a new piece made to fit. Repairs are not shameful here. They are acts of esteem because to mend is to insist upon continuity. Listen to the soft rasp of a file, the patient bite of a rasp, and the settling sigh when a repair holds. Such sounds map the ethics of a small economy. Usefulness preferred over novelty. Craft leaves traces the sea will recognize. Finger grooves in clay, rasp marks on timber, thumb polish where a hinge was handled repeatedly. These minutiae register in sediment and later point an archaeologist's finger. We read them as traces of habit. They are not artifacts alone, but indices of lives. When a fragment is coaxed from its sleep and placed on a tray, the intimacy of process speaks before any theory arrives. There is a continuity here that reaches beyond immediate usefulness. Sometimes a craft's small choice, where to leave an extra hole, how deep to mortise, determines whether a piece survives flood or rot. In that way, artisans are unwitting conservators. A careful joint, a well-driven peg, a modest coat of pitch written in habit becomes a small barrier against erasure. We think of these acts as ordinary, but in the long view they are kindnesses to future hands and gentle petitions to time. We will introduce a brief internal mantra to hold while we move through these noises. Repeat it once in the mind and let the cadence steady the chest. This phrase is not an instruction to produce, but an invitation to slow attention and to favor the patient rhythms of practice. Consider, too, the smellscape: lime dust subdued by water mist, the warm resin of pitch used for sealing, the mineral whisper of wet clay. These scents, softened by sea time, act as anchors for memory. They call up hands, not headlines. Let them settle in the nose of imagination and watch the face unclench. Before we leave this quarter, notice the subtle social economy. How favors are repaid with small goods, how a repaired tool is loaned in a season of need, how knowledge passes from elder to apprentice in the quiet arc of demonstration. The small economy is relational. It stitches people together with practical kindness. As we step away, carry the workshop's hum with you. The wheel's soft click, the smith's measured tap, the loom's low heart. Match your breath to these rhythms. Inhale as a tool lifts, exhale as it meets its task, and let the steady making settle deep in the chest. We will introduce a brief internal mantra to hold while we move through these noises. Repeat it once in the mind and let the cadence steady the chest. This phrase is not an instruction to produce, but an invitation to slow attention and to favor the patient rhythms of practice. Consider, too, the smellscape: lime dust subdued by water mist, the warm resin of pitch used for sealing, the mineral whisper of wet clay. These scents, softened by sea time, act as anchors for memory. They call up hands, not headlines. Let them settle in the nose of imagination and watch the face unclench. Before we leave this quarter, notice the subtle social economy. How favors are repaid with small goods, how a repaired tool is loaned in a season of need, how knowledge passes from elder to apprentice in the quiet arc of demonstration. The small economy is relational. It stitches people together with practical kindness. As we step away, carry the workshop's hum with you. The wheel's soft click, the smith's measured tap, the loom's low heart. Match your breath to these rhythms. Inhale as a tool lifts, exhale as it meets its task, and let the steady making settle deep in the chest. Pavlopetri, rituals, domestic offerings, and the inner chamber, sunken ziggurat motif. We enter now the softer precincts where ritual and habit touch, where small ceremonies make ordinary days holy by repetition rather than by proclamation. Breathe with the careful cadence of a bell that is not meant to be heard far, but only to steady a pair of lungs. Inhale as it rises, exhale as it fades. The terraces here are low and human-sized. Their thresholds invite hands more than spectacle. In courtyards, people enact minute liturgies. A bowl placed at dawn with a measured handful of grain, a lamp trimmed and set so the wick will last through the hour, a small oil spill carefully wiped. These gestures are domestic rotations of care, repeated until they map the year. We watch a woman pressing dough with rhythmic patience and, in doing so, offering a daily kind of devotion. The act itself is a votive habit that steadies family life. One might suppose that ritual require grand architecture, and yet here devotion is stitched into the ordinary seam. Listen to the small acoustic signatures, the soft clack of token beads placed in a niche, the gentle scrape as a lamp is tended, the low consonant of a bowl being set down. These are lullaby sounds in a civic key, and when they recur, they make a sound architecture that anchors the community. The bell's faint vowel punctuates the day like a breathing exercise for many bodies. Inhale while it rises, exhale while it settles into silence. Let the ribs learn the bell's timing. Let your breath lengthen with it. We move toward an inner room now, an antechamber folded into a household's plan, lowered in scale and protected by a low lintel. Stooping aligns the body with the threshold. Feel the spine incline and the breath shorten as if to a secret. Inside, the light is dim and the sound becomes almost private. Water whispers at a distance. Peat keeps a thin cushion of air, and the smell of resin and old smoke is close enough to touch with memory. This is the place where, across generations, small objects are kept like marginal notes pressed between pages. There, in this pocket, the sunken ziggurat motif narrows into a domestic equivalent. A low shelf holds a single object, a bead threaded on a frayed cord, its glaze arrested in a hairline smile. It is not monumental, but it is absolute in its intimacy. It is the thing someone chose to cradle and not to let go. We do not need it to answer geological puzzles. We need it as a hinge for empathy. Say the phrase inwardly and let it settle like a hand on the heart. Examine the bead in imagination, its curve worn by thumb and tide, a tiny loss of pigment like a blotted annotation, an asymmetry that suggests a child's fumble. Close to it lies a small carved peg, thumb-polished, that once held a string of domestic tokens. Nearby, a smear of pigment marks the edge of a votive bowl. These residues speak in material whispers. Someone steadied a hand there. Someone chose that object for its shape. Someone returned in dusk to touch the same stone. When a conservator later lifts such an item from silt, gloves yielding to brush, they will speak in understated terms: soak, test, dry, and their hands will accept the object as if receiving a letter. There is a warmth in that hand-to-object meeting that is less heat and more recognition, the sensation that an act of attention has passed through time and been received. Feel the palm over the sternum now and let that recognition echo inward. Votive practice here is not show but habit. A bowl filled with grain at the threshold is both offering and ration. A thread left in a niche may be both token and not. These small deposits anchor people to place and to one another. They are the town's memory devices. The scholar will murmur that peat preserves such depositions intact and that repeated gestures leave sedimentary signatures. But for us, the point is sweeter and quieter. Repetition makes remembrances that are human-sized. We might ask, briefly, what quiet courage it takes to keep such things when the horizon shifts. What steadiness of hand, what low faith. Does care become ritual because it is the only way to claim continuity? Or does ritual itself produce the continuity it commemorates? We pose such questions not to demand an answer, but to widen our attention. They are invitations to think slowly, not to decide quickly. Breathe with that patient inquiry, and let the inhalation be a soft opening. There are small social rituals too. An elder giving a child a bead as both token and manual for how to behave. Neighbors exchanging a spare shard with a quiet nod. A young person lighting a lamp and then stepping back to let smoke carry a short message. These acts teach manners and memory together, folding civility into daily practice. Before we step back, let us settle with a private mantra. We lay our hands quietly. We lay our hands quietly. Repeat it softly in the mind and let the rhythm lower the shoulders. The bead remains in its dark like an unread line of a poem, small and exact. The inner chamber keeps its private archive, and we, who visit, are given its modest trust. Carry that trust as we move on, softened, steady, companioned. We are invited now into the quietest arena of speculation, where the sea lowers her voice and we listen for causes without urgency, without the courtroom tone that so often accompanies scientific knowing. We have come far enough with Pavlopetri that the question of submergence no longer burns, it murmurs. We do not stand over maps as prosecutors. Rather, we sit at the literal edge like librarians of tide, reading the spines of sedimentary layers and wondering how many authors worked on this book. Let us breathe with the idea of multiplicity. Inhale as though a continental shelf moved a fingertip's width. Exhale as though a century folded itself carefully and placed another thin leaf atop the last. We are not here to crown a single explanation. We are here to accept an ensemble. First, we consider the most patient theory, gradual subsidence and sea level rise. It is the hypothesis of long duration, the favorite of time itself. The Peloponnesian coastline is mutable across millennia. The crust yields. The sea trespasses politely. One might suppose that Pavlopetri was never struck down, but rather escorted under, centimeter by centimeter, like a fragile heirloom being lowered onto a velvet shelf. In this version, the town is not a casualty. It is a guest of geology, granted a seat below the waves so that its plans could be stored undisturbed. When we picture this scenario, we might imagine pollen diagrams registering small climatic edits, slightly more salt-tolerant flora near the marsh edge, slightly fewer inland species along the ridge. A core sample becomes a faint tally of botanical decisions. Here a wet sequence, there a saline adjustment. Nothing abrupt, only gradual accretion of conditions until the town's ground level accepts saturation. Shoulders soften at the thought of such patience. Nothing screams, nothing breaks. An old lane disappears beneath tidally pooled water, not as disaster, but as accommodation. The sea is not enemy, it is curator. Now we shape a second line of thought, something more episodic, though still not violent in our telling. A seismic gesture, perhaps, a tremor along a fault line off Laconia's coast, a shifting of limestone plates that unseated foundations and made the land tilt a degree. We need not imagine panic. We may instead imagine a meeting. People noticing that doorsteps took water more often after one autumn storm, that clay floors softened, that a warehouse near the harbor needed to be propped with timber wedges. In this hypothesis, inundation occurs in increments of awareness rather than in a single headline. A threshold accepts puddles, a courtyard puddles deeper, then a season arrives in which standing water lingers across weeks. Residents resist briefly, sandbags, channels, improvised drainage, and then they adapt. One might imagine a council choosing to move households inward by a dozen meters, just as one yields a favorite chair to dampness rather than quarrel with a drip. A third possibility refuses to privilege earth or sea. It looks instead to ourselves. Human settlement affects its margins. Clay extraction alters soils. Timbering changes runoff. Anchorage routines disturb seagrass, which once mediated erosion. Perhaps no one decision had consequence, but the combination of mundane choices formed a small chorus. More fishing skiffs in the shallows, more clearance of reeds, less buffering. And when a heavy season pressed in, rain weighted by warmer air, tides encouraged by a subtle shift in wind, the land no longer held its line. There is a humility in proposing that no villain exists. The sea did not conquer. The land did not collapse. People did not ruin. Instead, change accumulated like silt, each layer understandable, each thin on its own, yet together a palimpsest of transition. Let our breathing follow that principle. Small increments, gentle progressions, never a gulp. If we placed 3 sediment cores on a table now, perhaps glass cylinders, each banded by colors like a folded flag, we would not expect unanimity. One core may show storm-wash sequences, coarser grains, angular fragments. Another may preserve peat and reed remnants, evidence of marsh encroachment. A third may favor pollen over grit. The scholar in us might murmur an aside. It is a curious fact that evidence rarely harmonizes, and we should be suspicious of any history that claims to sing in tune. Pavlopetri is too old, too deferred, too delicate for one-voice explanations. Pause and imagine sonar. Not the cinematic kind. Only low pulses sent for mapping, received as faint return waves that trace angles. A courtyard becomes a gesture of geometry. A collapsed wall becomes a softened diagonal. Each sonic line records what remains, not how it changed. And so, when we match sonar to cores, we match echo to sediment. The mind bends to analogy, but the body relaxes before the arithmetic. The longer we spend on such correspondences, the more we understand that answer is plural. Does the listener wish a decisive sentence? Perhaps, but decisive sentences are sharp, and we avoid edges here. Pavlopetri is an argument for comfort and ambiguity. Imagine asking the water and receiving only a longer hush in reply. That hush can be knowledge. Let us wonder, gently, whether resignation played a role. It is one thing for land to sink and another for people to stay, then leave gradually. Perhaps families relocated to a ridge settlement already used for grazing. The town becomes seasonal, then occasional, then irrelevant. Roof beams sag, hearths decay. A courtyard takes rain, later it takes brine. And one morning someone visits to find the paving lost beneath a shallow lens of water that refuses to drain. No climax, only retreat, executed with dignity. The archaeological handwriting that survives, walls pinned under sand, house plans etched by void, does not adjudicate cause. Instead, it shows that preservation can be the accidental gift of long decay. And is that not a kind of grace? The sea kept safe what fire or plunder might have erased. Salt became archivist. Breathe into that word, archivist, and note how the diaphragm softens. We are not required to solve the file. We are invited to sit with the folders. Consider now the ethics of interpretation. When researchers comment on the date ranges, radiocarbon spans between late Neolithic traces and Bronze Age domestic floors, they do not announce conquest. They hedge. They say it is possible that inundation escalated between given centuries. One might imagine a sequence of events rather than an event. These qualifiers are not cowardice, they are courtesy. They protect the dignity of an old town by refusing to simplify it. Does it matter which mechanism prevailed? Perhaps not. Our urge to know is strong, but our deeper urge is to rest. Multiplicity is rest. Instead of one explanation marching like a banner, three coexist like slow tides touching the same breakwater. Each valid, each incomplete. Let the breath mimic that structure. Three small rises, one long fall. We might picture excavation teams declining to crown a theory. They log, they photograph, they write, they revise. They allow competing scenarios to remain adjacent. This is intellectual gentleness, which resembles kindness. Scholars make room for uncertainties so that the past may keep some privacy. And in privacy there is tenderness. Pavlopetri is not improved by certainty. We hold it loosely, and it remains whole. Let us close this inquiry by proposing one final notion, not a theory, but a courtesy. What if the sea's occupation was not theft, but adoption? What if submergence is simply a change of stewardship? People leave, water arrives, continuity persists. The bead sleeps, the lane rests. The courtyard is stroked by silt instead of broom. Some responsibilities are transferred, not lost. Breathe with that. And as the body settles, imagine saying, not aloud, but inwardly, it agrees with all three. The land subsided. The water rose. People altered their shore. It agrees with all three. The cores speak in layers, sonar in echoes, pollen in percentages. It agrees with all three. And we, sitting at the threshold of speculative knowledge, may accept that consensus is not necessary for peace. In the end, the town's fate is neither tragic nor triumphant. It is continuous. It is layered. It is safe. It agrees with all three. Let us enter a gentler chamber now, one with fewer objects, fewer declarative sentences, fewer claims. Pavlopetri is not a monument of abundance. It is a geography of incomplete sentences. We stand in a place where absence behaves like artifact. Notice how the imagination steadies when confronted not with spectacle, but with vacancy. No heroic statue rises from this seabed. No gilded hoard awaits its documentary spotlight. Instead, the sea keeps small, restrained gestures, domestic rooms, storage capacities, lanes navigable by ordinary feet. These are not the trophies of a fallen capital. They are the breathing spaces of routine. What is missing becomes instructional. If we expect fortification walls and see none, that is a kind of annotation, suggesting not defenselessness, but confidence in exchange. A port town with no muscular boundary may have trusted the rhythms of trade or kinship. Its security might have been relational rather than architectural. If we expect palatial hierarchy and see none, that quiet gap speaks of social gradients more modest than the courts of Knossos or Mycenae. Absence does not diminish, it clarifies. This was not a stage for royal procession. It was a site of working households, where storage jars mattered more than insignia. Let the breath reflect that clarity. Inhale without urgency. Exhale without proclamation. Now consider pottery. Sherds are plentiful elsewhere, heapings of discard, aggregates of chronology, but at Pavlopetri, what reaches our hands is selective. The seabed decides what stays intact: a lip, a base, a handle. We handle fragments, not wholes. The mind is tempted to reconstruct, yet silence remains part of the lesson. A missing motif is also a date. A missing region of paint is also a history of abrasion. What the sea has erased is a form of authorship. The absence itself is an editor. In metallurgy, think how little bronze survives here. One might expect anchors, blades, hinges, needles, but brine takes metal faster than it takes stone. The result is an asymmetrical archive. We are permitted stone alignments and floor plans, but denied some of the intimate objects that registered the pulse of hands. This is not a theft, it is a curation. The sea exhibits only what can breathe underwater for 3,000 years. We are reading a document after the redaction. Let the shoulders lower at that thought. Knowledge need not be total to be sufficient. Silence continues into textuality. There are no surviving written records pinned to this submerged grid. No clay tablet stating its own relevance. No inventory listing its cargo. Pavlopetri is not a city scribbling about itself. Its literacy, if present, has dispersed into silt. And instead of mourning, we may regard this with calm. The absence of text allows spatial grammar to speak. The plan is the sentence. The street alignment is the clause. This is archaeology by syntax of foundation. Now consider absence in chronology. Radiocarbon gives ranges, not certainties. Mid-second millennium, plus or minus. Earlier domestic floors, plus or minus. The town does not request precision, it offers windows. We look through intervals, not pinpoints. Even dates have their own literal zone, neither land nor sea, but a boundary that drifts. Absence also protects dignity. Where graves should be, we hesitate. Have they not been found, or did the town bury its dead elsewhere? The archaeological instinct wants resolution, but the emotional instinct finds tranquility in restraint. Let the dead remain undiscovered if that grants them gentler surroundings. We breathe again, slow, held for a moment, released. Absence governs narrative ambition. Because we lack evidence of catastrophe, no burnt destruction layer, no sudden collapse horizon, we resist dramatization. Pavlopetri does not invite epic. It invites continuance. Without evidence of invasion, we quiet that storyline. Without evidence of plague, we quiet that supposition. Absence disciplines imagination. Even acoustics participate. Divers report that Pavlopetri is uncommonly hushed. The seagrass meadows absorb sound. The contours do not echo like shipwreck frames. The city listens more than it speaks. The past is underwater, but the metaphor is archival. Silence functions as climate. Take a slower inhale here. Let the diaphragm widen. The mind may ask, does absence frustrate us? But frustration belongs to those who interrogate ruins for answers. We are here to dwell, not to interrogate. In this setting, absence becomes a relief. The gaps are spacious. They allow rest. Perhaps this is the gift. A Bronze Age town that does not advertise itself. A submerged grid that does not beg interpretation. An archaeological record that relinquishes ownership of certainty. Pavlopetri is, in a sense, unburdened. And we, in turn, are unburdened. Absence is an exhale through the centuries. It prevents the intellect from tightening into a fist. It keeps hypothesis supple. Let us consider the final absence, urgency. The town does not demand recovery. It does not seek reclamation. It is comfortable where it lies, curated by slow tides, mapped by sonar's cautious outlines, interpreted in constraint. Perhaps our role is not to fill the missing, but to admire the contour of what remains. Archaeology here is not salvage, it is accompaniment. We sit beside a place that has already completed its transitions. Let the breath settle into a longer cadence now. 4 counts in, 6 counts out. In absence there is completion. In omission there is preservation. In quiet seafloor spaces there is continuity across eras that never required our verification. We listen to what is not present, and in that listening we rest. We will rise now, but not abruptly. No narrative ladder, no sudden brightness. Just a gradual loosening of weight, as though the water itself has decided to thin around us. The outlines of Pavlopetri, its lanes, its thresholds, its apertures, remain below, but they no longer require our attention. They continue without us. That continuity is calming. As we begin this ascent, imagine the pressure easing along the ribs. The diaphragm has more room. The exhale no longer meets resistance. The town below does not shrink. It simply recedes into a comfortable blur. Archaeology does not vanish, it disperses. You may notice that certainty disperses too. The grid that once felt diagrammatic softens into a pale geometry. The submerged walls become tonal shifts rather than facts. Foundations blur into gradients of sand. In this gentle distortion, the town achieves a new state of rest, not erased, but diffused. The sea is not protecting it from history now. It is protecting it from overdefinition. Let the breath follow that cue. Inhale through something spacious. Exhale into something unmeasured. Seagrass fronds appear again near the surface light, slow tendrils, moving without destination. They do not archive anything. They do not remember Bronze Age domestic patterns or maritime exchange. They simply perform the motions that reduce memory into ecosystem. Where pottery once held grain or oil, now silt holds nothing. The neutrality is soothing. If the mind searches for narrative closure, resist that reflex. Nothing in Pavlopetri required finality. The town did not collapse with theatrical force. It eased into inundation. It transitioned the way coastlines always have. Incremental, barely visible, more drift than drama. We return in the same manner. The shallows brighten but do not glare. The seabed releases definition with each upward foot. If you try to recall a particular room, a 2-story dwelling, an open courtyard, it may already feel indistinct. This is not loss. It is a settling of cognitive sediment. Memory, too, benefits from lowering resolution. Pause here. Let the lungs fill without urgency. There is no need to retrieve lessons. Pavlopetri does not ask to be applied. It never demanded meaning. It simply hosted ordinary lives, then receded into salt water and time. We are not responsible for interpreting its trajectory. Our only task was to witness its quiet persistence without disturbing its equilibrium. At the surface, the sound returns first, not the clamor of engines or voices, but the tempered hush of evening water. Waves retain the metronome of rest. The horizon forms a calm partition, neither promising nor concluding. You may notice sky gradients, deepening blue, early nocturne, but nothing instructs you to categorize it. Your breath is unstructured now. Inhale at any duration. Release without counting. If thoughts arise, questions of trade routes, dates, architects, let them dissipate the way disturbed silt settles again. Knowledge does not vanish. It simply waits until daylight wants it. Tonight is for suspension, for flotation, for non-resolution. And so the town below remains submerged, not as a secret, not as a puzzle, but as an environment relieved of witness. In its submerged anonymity, it achieves a form of freedom. You may close the eyes if they are still open. You may leave them half-lidded. You may think of nothing particular. Pavlopetri does not require recall. All that remains is the steady negotiation between body and horizon. An exhale that no longer remembers stone grids. An inhale that does not seek to map ancient streets. The surface is quiet. The body is quiet. And the town below continues, calm, unclaimed, and resting. We remain at the surface, but we do not immediately orient ourselves. There is no imperative to identify direction, no need to assign east or west, no compulsion to reconstruct a map. The mind has been working quietly for the duration of our descent and return, picturing foundations, superimposing household tasks, imagining sandals on stone lanes, and now it may release the responsibility of imagination. If a picture tries to sharpen, perhaps a domestic threshold or an angled corner, you may let that picture blur at its edges. Narratives exhaust themselves when they must remain precise. We are offering precision a recess. The water around us becomes a soft equalizer, the space where recollection and forgetting perform the same action. Let us introduce a gentle ambiguity. Pavlopetri may feel older or younger than the dates we inferred. Its occupancy may seem momentary or generational. The mind might reach for a category. Is it a maritime node, a seasonal settlement, an enduring port? But categories, tonight, are scaffolds we are not obliged to assemble. We may simply say, there was life there once, and allow the sentence to remain unsupervised. Your breathing may continue in unmetered cycles. We do not prescribe tempo. Some breaths arrive with a longer tail, others shorten without cause. The body performs respiration without narrative input. The diaphragm adjusts according to comfort rather than instruction. This is a favorable condition. If the body registers a point of contact, the texture of a sheet, the slope of a pillow, the warmth of a blanket, observe it without commentary. The sensation is neither data nor metaphor. It is merely the body locating its own perimeter. We are not asked to turn that perimeter into meaning. Should the mind try to reconstruct the archaeological record, carbon dates, site grids, excavation phases, you may imagine those mental documents filed back into drawers. Dust does not signify neglect. Dust is a slow archivist. Whatever remains unsolved remains unthreatened. We have spoken of water pressure earlier, how it wrapped the ribs, how it changed the register of breath. Now the pressure is neutral, ambient, a state in which nothing presses inward and nothing presses outward. That equilibrium is sleep adjacent. Consider how coastlines behave on long timelines. They do not lecture themselves about erosion. They do not schedule sediment. They move by millimeters, and those millimeters accumulate into epochs. We can borrow their pace. Let the eyelids lower a fraction more. Vision does not need to track anything. Pavlopetri is not rising from the water in vision. It is sinking into non-obligation. Another exhale, long or short, whichever arrives. Now, allow even the idea of Pavlopetri to fall to the seabed. Not as a relic, not as an unanswered question, only as a settled object. A final resting place for thought that no longer needs to perform. The body may drift towards stillness now. Thought may follow the body, and both may rest without instruction. We return, not to the map, not to the artifact trays, not to the tidy intellectual scaffolding we allowed ourselves earlier, but to the soft, tidal bed that holds everything without urgency. We have traveled through grids and hypotheses, through trade and hearth, through a single bead cupped like warmth in a diver's palm. We have honored the meticulous patience of people who shaped clay, and the equally meticulous patience of water undoing their outlines grain by grain. Now, we ask neither curiosity nor interpretation to remain awake. We allow a closing drift. Breathe once, without depth requirements, just a breath, unmeasured. And another, slower, not because slow is virtuous, only because there is space for it. The sea becomes an undrawn page. Earlier, we felt the pale turquoise thinning into soft green as we submerged along the shallow shelf. That gradient is still here, though less visible now. It exists as a memory of color rather than a demand for vision, a background wash that lets the mind dial down its contrast settings. If a fragment of shoreline persists, southern Laconia's quiet crescent, you do not need to sharpen it. A coastline that blurs is a teaching in rest. We recall the grid of streets, only to let it unfocus. A paved lane aligned to a courtyard, softened. A cistern in that courtyard, blurred. The domestic thumb smear across a threshold, released. These are no longer archaeological signals. They are rhythmic placeholders, dissolving in warm water. And we breathe again, with the tide, or near the tide, or indifferent to the tide. You may picture the body not floating, not sinking, simply held by neutral buoyancy. The spine eases. The jaw unhooks. Shoulders drift 1 millimeter wider, or perhaps they do not move at all. The comfort lies in the lack of requirement. Now, the emotional timbre that guided us, from curiosity, through belonging, toward tenderness, slides gently into surrender. Not dramatic surrender, not the stage sigh of protagonists who want applause. This is a quiet recalibration, in which wakefulness softens its vigilance and lets sensing become sensing without interpretation. We spoke throughout these hours of ordinary labor as continuity. The repetition of sweeping, or knotting a rope, or turning clay. Those motions were their own archive. Tonight, your smallest autonomic rhythms serve the same function. The body maintains itself. The pulse writes without ink. The vagus nerve adjusts tension in its quiet jurisdiction. You are being maintained without supervision. We allow memory to become mist. Pavlopetri's chronology, early bronze, middle bronze, late bronze, need not anchor anything. The centuries are welcome to collapse into undifferentiated dusk. Sea level rise may be a murmur. Subsidence may be a shrug. Storm breach may be the ghost trace of a story that does not mind whether it convinces us. Let the eyelids droop. Let the mind's edges feather. If a gull's elongated vowel crosses the scene, let it become nothing but a stretched ribbon of sound. It matters less that gulls exist and more that duration exists. You may, if it feels comforting, return to the bead, the small, polished object we carried carefully through inner chambers and conservation trays. At first, we used it as a mnemonic anchor, a hinge between lost domesticity and present tenderness. Now, even the bead has permission to sleep. We need not handle it. We need not imagine pigment in its creases. We allow the surface to fall back into dark water. We release stewardship. We release narrative. We release curiosity. Let the feet loosen first. No visualization needed, just permission. Then the palms, cooler or warmer than the surrounding air. Then the spine, its length unpoliced. Then the small muscles around the eyes, letting go of focus. Now, we begin anaphora. We speak to the quiet retention of matter. The stone remembers. Long after memory becomes optional, the sand keeps, grains shifting, never disturbed by hurry. The bead sleeps, curled in shadow without needing witnesses. The sea watches on, patient, uninvested, eternal in tone but not theatrical. The stone remembers. The sand keeps. The bead sleeps. The sea watches on. The body follows the loop downward, waves of muscle uncontracting, thought surrendering scaffolding. If imagery still forms, tiles, anchor patterns, net snags, pollen diagrams, let them unspool. There is no benefit in sorting. Thought is sediment, finding a flat place. You may picture yourself lying near the shallow shelf again, water not over the body but near the mind. A sheet of glass, a color that refuses edges, a tide that never insists. We are not closing a story. We are letting a story sink back into geological pace. Human urgency does not apply underwater. At the end of this loop comes permission, not granted with flourish, but with calm certainty. You may sleep. You may let the city sleep. You may allow everything to remain underwater, unanswered, unanxious, unlit. The sea takes the final inventory.